Hi guys. So today we're going to be carrying on with this painting which we began in the last couple of sessions. And it's probably going to be, I think, the third of 4 parts. We've spent 2 parts so far. We got the that burnt umber wash drawing over white that we started in the first session. Last week I did this dead colouring, so kind of blocking in the overall kind of flesh tones and getting them established as I want them to be. And today we're going to be beginning sort of rendering aspects of the painting. So rendering probably primarily these features in the center of the piece. That's all I'm going to be doing. And then in the next session we'll be kind of zooming back out and reworking some of the background and so on. So I'm going to zoom in. Try not to have my camera drop out. Just into the face so you guys can see that pretty clearly. And so this is the section that I'm going to be working on, basically. I'm going to be using a pretty small brush. You can see this is the size brush I'm using. You don't have to swap to such a tiny brush. I tend to do a lot of miniatures, so I'm quite comfortable working with a small brush, but you could work bigger. So we'll just work kind of feature by feature, basically. And I'll begin with the shaping of the brows. So I want to get in and kind of think about what's the shape, the sort of form of these brows, how much do we kind of have a little transition out of the shadows and so on in order to give it a bit more body. And what it means is I need to kind of go back in and remix some more flesh tones like I was using. So they're fairly kind of yellowish, touch of red. So I'm using the same palette, so I've got Cad Red, Cad Yellow, Yellow Ochre, White, Titanium Black, and Burnt Umber. So those are the colours that I'm using. So that's a pretty good match for the colour I had last week in this little bit of the portrait. Just making sure that's pretty stable. And I'll patch a little bit up here just to kind of check it kind of roughly works there as well. So from that point I then need to start mixing some slightly darker progressions. So as we start to get down to this sort of curve of the can just see how these lighter tones moving into the darker tones, just based on what we established last week, the kind of the colours we figured out in the dead colouring stage. That's sort of what it's for. Just using those, we just round these smaller little forms as we get them in. So we've got this little highlight in there, and a little bit, maybe a little bit of highlight up here in that form as well. So I'm just sort of looking at the undulations in and out in these more complex little forms. So all of these eye forms are they're rolling around, they're kind of barreling around the socket, the eye socket. Oh, sorry, the eyeball sitting within the socket. So this is sort of like, we're looking at the socket as a whole around here, and then the eyeball's kind of pushing forwards. So it's sort of bulging out and then making these raised sections. So where they're more raised and they're turning towards the light source, the value gets lighter. And that's happening at two levels: the sort of the bag underneath the eye, the shape underneath the eye, and the lid itself, which is kind of closing up. So that's starting to work pretty well for all the forms around the eye. I maybe want to start to transition a little bit out of this shadow, sort of soften the transition for that brow shadow, wrapping down. It's just a bit more kind of burnt umber. I'm getting into it up here. And I want to put a touch of burnt umber and a little bit of red just in this little corner of the eye, because it goes quite dark and intense in that corner. So you can see we're just now starting to get these kind of complicated forms wrapping around each other to kind of interconnect. We haven't quite worked down and connected into the cheek. We'll be doing that later in the session. And I might have slightly overestimated getting through all the features. I think working at this pace, to be fair, we'll probably not get quite all the way through. But we'll have lots to work on in the next it'll probably be a couple of weeks, I reckon, realistically. So I want to I'm going to do a slightly bigger area and just get some pink, some red and white, and I just want to block in a little bit more light into this cheek. Just picked up a bit more white there because it was a bit dull what I'd mixed. Not dull, but not quite light enough value. It's probably actually the opposite of dull. Just trying to get a little bit more white into these mixtures. And it's a subtle balance because I don't want it to go too grey, but it does go slightly greyer in this sort of highlight along the cheek because that's reflecting the light source, which is quite cool in this painting. So sort of there, here, it's a little bit lighter, that reflected light. Up there as well. So maybe just go a little bit darker. Try to push a tiny bit darker with this colour. And also get the transition softened off a little bit too. And there's a slight sliver of the lid showing as well, so get a little bit of the sort of lashes starting to show through, develop a bit of the sort of shadow over the eyes here, so we want them to kind of sweep down. And a little bit of light creeping into the base of the iris there. So that's, I kind of made that slightly greenish. It's probably more of a bluish colour, but just want to give a little bit of light sort of shining through into this white of the eye slightly. As it's sort of facing forwards. And then I'm going to take a little bit of pure white, just a touch of pure white, and I want to try to get just that highlight that's hitting the eye, and you can see that really kind of brings it to life a bit, which is quite nice. So I'm fairly happy with that eye shape. What I would maybe do is kind of take some more muted kind of yellowish colours, try to just get a little bit of softening around the brow. So we're not quite getting into like individual hair strands there, but sort of starting to suggest the texture of it. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with how that eye is kind of developed. So I've not quite got up into the forehead, we'll probably be doing that next time. I want to try to get this second eye in place. Second eye is a little bit simpler. I'm going to be trying to use the same colours that we had for the previous one. So we've got this kind of reddish lid colour. Projects out. And we go really dark and red. I'm just mixing up a slightly brighter colour to kind of pop in front of that back eye. So these are pretty subtle differences that we're looking at. And we'll run that down the bridge of the nose. Even more white yet. Some white in the tip of the nose. And then I just want to start to sort of turn the form a little bit, sort of down towards the base of the nose. And yeah, that's looking pretty good. So I'm just going to get a little bit more of a curve on this lid, a bit slightly lighter colour as well. So a little bit more pink near the corner of the eye here, and then I want a more bluish colour to the rest of the white of the eye. And that little highlight too. And I'm just going to take a little bit more pure white, touch of red. too greyish with that colour, so just block some white back over. Maybe a touch of red as well. Probably need to clean my brush off a touch. Pick up just some white. Yeah, that's better. So these colours I'm not going to render out, I just wanted to kind of establish them for next sessions. That value's about right. Maybe could add a little bit more pigment into it, so a little bit more red and yellow. Just kind of paint into it on the surface. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. So I didn't quite get down to the nose and mouth. We'll have a look at next time, but certainly there's a lot more life in the eyes now. Maybe just having a look at it. I'm going to put just a touch of more of a reddish eyelid, just dropping down a bit more severely here. Yeah, that's a bit better. Maybe a little bit of like a shadow overhang there. Yeah. So that's looking pretty good, I think. So I'm quite happy with that, how it's sort of rendering out. I'll do a little bit of a zoom back just so you can sort of see the context of how it's kind of looking. So you can see it's a lot more still kind of patchier in the background, but you can see that sort of focusing in something more rendered. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. We'll be doing a few more. I said at the beginning it's going to be 4, but realistically, with how long this session, or how much we got through in that session, it's going to probably be another one at least for the mouth and maybe the forehead. Probably maybe 5 sessions in total that we'll be working on this piece, depending on how loose we keep the background. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, you can subscribe to the channel, click like and subscribe to see videos from myself and other tutors and students at the school. And you can also click the link in our description for the video in order to see the sorts of paid qualifications we offer as well. So yeah, that's it for today, and I'll see you guys soon.